With over 300 registrations for today's event, it's clear that this is a topic that's top of mind for companies all around the world. And at Insight, right before the pandemic hit, we just added another floor to our New York City HQ. And the last 2 years have given us an opportunity to really ask ourselves, what's important in a physical office, and to really imagine what's possible in terms of design and technology to make a space that's innovative, safe, and enables hybrid work. So to share some best practices and industry research with our ecosystem, we invited 3 of our partners, CBRE, Corgan, and Zoom, to take the stage today and share what they're seeing in the market. But before we do that, let's take a look at those poll results and see what you all are thinking. So the first question was, what do you value most about an in-person office? Majority of you said collaboration, with design being a close runner-up, and technology. The second question was, describe your current work environment. Seems like most people are hybrid, with second being 100% remote. Interesting, that's similar to what we have at Insight. So thank you for sharing those polls and entering that poll with us. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce our first speaker today. We have both Lucas and John from CBRE to share what they're seeing in the real estate market.
Christina, can you guys hear me okay? Just making sure.
Yep, sounds great.
Okay, so let's jump in. So, I'm going to start and then hand to John. My name is Lucas Ault. I'm based in San Francisco, and I'm part of CBRE's tech and media practice. And we really advise companies very broadly, sort of across the spectrum, things like where to locate, how much space you need, all of that. And John's group really focuses on, once you're in the space, how do you outfit it to sort of get the most out of your employees and create a great experience. Go to the next slide. So, one of the things, at CBRE, we're the largest commercial real estate services firm in the world. And what we've realized is as you grow as a startup, your needs change. And as you evolve as a company, you're probably going to need sort of more support. We like to think of you guys as that sort of 6'8" eighth grader, right? Really tall and lanky and just needs a little bit there to keep you upright. And going in the right direction. And one of the things that's nice about working at CBRE in such a big organization is we have resources to support you sort of across this full tenant life cycle. Most firms, brokerage firms, only live in that transaction portion of the wheel, whereas we have tools and people that really advise and support you, wherever you might find yourself on that sort of real estate journey. We've highlighted some of the clients that we work with. We try to pull out a couple of the Insight portfolio to make them stronger, or more visible. But yeah, we're doing this every day, and we're happy to sort of advise you at any point. If we go to the next slide, really this is what we're hearing from our clients today, and the survey kind of hit the nail on the head. To what degree is your company going to allow remote work, and will there be different policies for different people, and what will that be based on? Combining sort of the next two, what's the purpose of employees coming to the office? It sounds like collaboration was number one in the survey, but what does that mean? Does that mean we're still going to have sort of, assigned seating and one-to-one desks and, neighborhoods? Or, how does that all work? And then ultimately, once you've sort of decided on that policy, how does that impact how much space you actually need? Christine, I know you guys added another floor. If you could do it all over again, do you think you need it, right? Pre-pandemic. So that's one of the things to think about. And then, once you have the space, how do you actually invest in it to make it conducive to people doing their best work? And sort of, John will touch on that a little bit more later. So it's a high level, this is what we're thinking. If we go to the next slide, please. So what we've learned, from the pandemic is that, the future workplace ecosystem is going to be pretty fluid, especially in the tech community. there's going to be all these different nodes that people are going to work from, whether that's sort of an HQ, whether maybe that's a WeWork or a sort of on-demand space, maybe it's a coffee shop, right? It's sort of different strokes for different folks. One thing that we've developed, and we'll send this out at the end of the call, is sort of a virtual program calculator to help you think through different business units. Because at the end of the day, and HR will cringe to hear me say this, not all employees are created equal, right? You're probably okay with your salespeople being completely remote if they're hitting their numbers every quarter, versus if you have an engineering team that needs to ship a product by a certain day, you probably want to have eyes on those folks as two sort of disparate examples. So just a tool to help you sort of, think through it. And then on the same token, different leaders and team leaders are not built the same. Some sort of expect you to show up and be there and half the battle. So sort of sorting through that corporate culture and sort of how you want to, create a program that's conducive and custom and tailored to your corporate culture is difficult. And so we've created a tool to sort of help you think through that. The other piece, if we go to the next slide, if you are a fully remote, can we jump to the next? If you are a fully remote sort of company, is where are we going to be able to find talent, and how are those sort of pockets of people naturally occurring where it might make sense to open an office? So at CBRE, we have what we call our labor analytics group. They've been in business for over 20 years, and they track skill sets, they track years of experience, all of these sort of pieces that help you hire. Here's what we're seeing today in terms of tech talent specifically. So these are employees that have some technical skills or have come from a tech company, not, and that could be, an engineer working at a bank, that's still technical talent. So we're counting these people. And what we're seeing today is, generally a move from really higher cost locales to sort of lower cost in the tech world. What I think personally is happening is really just an acceleration of movements that would have happened eventually. And I'll give you an example. So if you live in San Francisco or New York and you're a young parent, right? It was probably inevitable that you're going to move to the suburbs at some point, but having to be in a crowded apartment with a baby, probably allowed you to make that decision sooner than you normally would have. And so as we look across, the country, there's a lot going on, with migration and just being on top of where these pockets might naturally occur. It might be a policy for you guys to say, okay, when we have 20 people in a certain market, that's when we want to think about going and opening an office or grabbing a WeWork for them to jump into. So just a couple, data points here for you guys to think about. Once you've sort of figured that piece out, if we can move to the next slide, is redefining, the purpose of that office. And I'm going to let Corgan speak sort of more in detail to this. The one thing I will say is that, CBRE has been doing this since 2013 with our Workplace 360 program. We have a 1.2 to 1 employees to desk ratio. There are no assigned seats. Every day I come in and jump in a hotel desk, and it's worked really well for us. If you think about what we do on a day-to-day, we have people running in and out, going to tour buildings. So they're not in the office every single day in front of, or when they're in, they're not in all day long. So it's worked out really well. We use different types of sensors and things like that to track sort of utilization. And this is what we've come up with for our program. Different orgs recently have gone in different directions. So I'll drop this in the chat, but most recently, Robinhood announced that they were going to be sort of a remote first organization. And then the next day, Google came out and said they were going to spend $1 billion on an asset in London, where they were going to actually add more space per employee in order to create these really cool collaborative hybrid work tools. So I'll drop those articles in the chat here in a second. I'm not saying that one strategy is right and wrong. It's just culturally, this is what sort of works for them and, the business that they run. If you think about, a hardware business, that's a really hard business to do remotely. So just a couple things to think about in terms of what you do, how your employees behave, and sort of the impact, that we need. So going on to the next slide, understanding all of these factors is really going to impact the amount of space you need. So it really is a combination of policy, design, and behavior, I'd say, to figure out, how much space we need. Are we getting leaner? Do we need more space for collaboration? How many people are we actually planning on supporting, and how often are they coming in? It's really great to think that we're going to have people come in, 3 days a week. But if everyone comes in Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and the office is empty Monday and Friday, that could pose to be a problem. So once you've solved for all these factors, it'll help you figure out how much space you need, and we'll send this calculator out, later to help you sort of play around, and happy to follow up with any questions. If we move on to the next slide. Once you figure out how much space you need, then it really becomes outfitting that space with all the latest and greatest tools to allow people to do their best work. And I'll sort of pass it to John here with one note. The last thing I'll say is more time, attention, dollars, energy, whatever you want to say, has been paid to workplace strategy now than ever before. So it's a great time to start thinking about these things and really implementing these strategies.
Well, thanks so much, Lucas. I really appreciate it. John Pomposello, I'm part of CBRE's Network Advisory Services team. Our team helps clients really select the correct technology service provider based on their unique business and technical requirements. And why I love this slide is when I'm talking about selecting the right technology service providers, I'm talking about the right internet access or fiber that's coming into this office that's allowing all of these individuals to work at their desk or in the collaboration rooms. They do have voice, whether it's phones or soft phones, collaboration tools on those laptops. Perhaps some of these individuals are part of a contact center, so clients are coming in. Managed hardware is the Wi-Fi that's making this all happen. And I'm sure a lot of this information is in some sort of a cloud environment. So this slide really depicts a lot of the technology that goes into the four walls. Our team is vendor neutral and carrier agnostic. And what I love about that is it really gives us insight into all of the unique differences in how individual companies are leveraging technology into the space. So today, I really hope I can provide a little insight on the correlation and importance between commercial real estate and technology. Gab, we can go to the next slide. What I find so interesting being on the technology side of the house is I hear commercial real estate talk about flexible work environment or hybrid environment. And in technology, and I know a lot of individuals on this call, we've been talking about hybrid for years, and really hybrid to us meant, are you keeping the technology within the four walls of the building? Are you bringing that into some sort of a co-location environment? Are you utilizing managed service providers to maybe take some of the load off of your shoulders? Are you leveraging the AWSs of the world to do different aspects of management? And really what we found is that 90% of the people use some flavor of hybrid, so there's no shock there. But internet access and network security is paramount. So you can have the most elaborate, gorgeous office with coffee makers and ping pong tables, but if you're not able to utilize the technology, it's not servicing your needs. The only way to make a hybrid environment work is by having the technology infrastructure. It has to allow the employees to have the same experience on their laptops, phones, tablets, and connected devices. They have to have that same experience in the office, at home, client locations. Lucas talked about coffee shops. Wherever they are, it has to be frictionless. I know that's a word that sometimes gets overused within a marketing environment, but if it's not that way, we find the employees are really going to have a communication breakdown. Your culture of the organization really starts to become fragmented, and this results in a siloed, disjointed, less competitive environment. So it really is important to make sure that you've got the technology infrastructure in your space or available for those employees wherever those employees reside. We can go to the next slide. What this slide represents is the three focal points that you should be thinking about when making service provider technology decisions. So I'm going to start on the far left, and really this is an incredibly small sample of all the different service providers that are available today. But you, as an end user, are tasked with making these decisions. You need to select service providers that are going to provide your employees with the best end user experience so they can get the job accomplished that they need to get accomplished. The center image really represents all of the different fiber infrastructure that's out there. So you want to make sure you have a clear understanding of how will my employees, whether they're in the office or someplace else, will they be accessing this information in this seamless type of a fashion? And then finally, all the way to the right, we're talking about the building that you're in today, or a building space that you're looking to go into. Does that have the right fiber in the building or around the building that's going to support your unique needs? I've seen some issues where occupiers can't even move into buildings because they don't have the right infrastructure that's set up. And not only is it important to say, is the fiber in or around the building, but can I get that connectivity to the floor and suite that I need it when I want it? And this slide really, like I said, hones in on those three focal points. And you want to make sure that you're addressing these questions as you're taking on a project, because if you're not, you're really going to not be able to deliver a successful outcome on time and on budget. And then outside of technology, you really want to be mindful of making sure that the contractual agreements you're executing on any sort of technology infrastructure is flexible, because regardless of what anybody thinks or is predicting, you're going to have problems you have to solve for in 12, 24, 36 months, and we don't even know what those problems are yet today. We can go to the next slide. So this slide represents the process that we utilize within our organization. And I do want to say, for any of the Insight portfolio companies, you have access to our team at no charge as part of the existing relationship. It's discovery is like, what is the problem that we're solving for today? Baseline is, what's the infrastructure that we're building on, or do we have to make some sort of change, implementation? What are the appropriate service providers that are going to meet your unique needs, whether it's internet access, collaboration, conferencing? How do you source those in that flexible environment? And then most importantly, we always want to make sure that things are delivered on time and on budget with expectations. Next slide. So that's what I have. I appreciate it. This slide really represents different links or resources if you'd like to get a hold of myself or Lucas or reference anything that was talked about. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, John and Lucas. Up next, we have George Collar from Corgan.
Thanks very much, Christina. Thanks a lot, Lucas and John. And thanks for everyone that's on the call. I'm George. I'm the studio leader for Corgan's interiors practice in New York. Just going to continue the conversation here today from an interiors perspective, from an interior design perspective, about how we're rethinking the workspace with our clients, talk about our relationship with work, shifts affecting the space, and we'll give you a couple of examples at the end as well about how the floor plan is changing at the moment. So just a little bit about us over the next slides. A quick overview of who we are. We've been around for over 80 years. We've got over 700 employees now, I believe. We've grown throughout the pandemic, which has been a fantastic success. And we have global offices And on the next slide, we're just showing you our coast-to-coast representation supporting Insight partners, portfolio companies, and all our other clients for all their growing needs as well. So on the next slide, we're always very proud to be associated with the design awards. We have a fantastic interiors practice, but also I think we're the biggest data centers architect, certainly in the States, and we have a huge aviation presence and other sectors as well globally. And really on the next slide, this is all about building our relationships with our clients. As I said, we're supporting you as Insight partners, portfolio companies, and all our other clients. And we have a huge amount of repeat business that we're really proud of. So the discussion today over the next slides is really to talk about our relationship with work and how that's changed, during the pandemic. And really it's accelerated hugely now over the last 12 months. And I think it's never going to be the same again. Really, well, I want to talk about our shift in mindset and really need to rethink our relationship with space and the office. So this slide, really is just demonstrating how our relationship with work has always been tied to technology from the Industrial Revolution. And now we're, how we're engaging with other people throughout. And, during 2020, this has been the huge period of disruption with both technology and how we're engaging with others. So we really don't have all the answers at the moment. We're still reacting to what's happening, I think, and a lot of clients are testing solutions. We're trying out new approaches. And really, as we're saying, we're rethinking the workplace. On the next slide, the statement that this period, 2020, 2021, and into 22 has really caused a fundamental shift in mindset towards work and the workplace. So on the next slide, how we're working together has changed. Teams work together is changing from, previously working predominantly together every day to now fully remote and somewhere in between. So going from those co-located teams now to a distributed workforce, so that really the team dynamics has changed drastically. We're calling this the liquid workforce. Really need to adjust to all different types of collaborative working. That stat there is really showing that the companies, the industries that have been doing really well during the pandemic really have embraced these hybrid workforce models more than those who aren't doing so well. Another fundamental shift that we're seeing as well with the new workforce coming into work over the last couple of years is really this workforce searching for meaning and belonging in what they're dedicating their time to. Previously, it was more status focused, based on your salary, your position, the size of your office, and really now this young workforce and others are really looking for this, the meaning in what they're doing. Really want to be seen for the unique contributions, the connection to co-workers, and really being proud of an organization's values. And all our clients really are seeing this and promoting that to attract and retain the best talent. So this next slide, everyone loves looking at this. This is a snapshot of how some of the, some of these, huge blue chip global companies are approaching flexible work. Some of these is maybe from 12 months ago, and I'd be really interesting to look back on this in another 12 months from now and to see really if people stuck to these strategies. But on the left-hand side, some firms have made huge statements saying that they're going 100% virtual, whereas on the right-hand side, maybe for more of the finance type firms are saying, look, we really need to get everyone back in the this is how we work best. But I think a lot of firms are seeing themselves as in the center there with these hybrid working policies, understanding that people do work efficiently at home, but also that we really do need to get back into the office for many reasons, including collaboration. So how are we seeing some of the shifts affecting the workplace? Really, we're seeing organizations being affected in many different ways. And how is the space going to be responding to these shifts? So on the next slide, I spoke about the liquid workforce. how are we adjusting for a liquid workforce? Really, let's get the fundamentals right. The basic human needs, a healthy workplace, really a place where people feel safe, comfortable, is really paramount. Amenities that matter. We know that people want to come into the office and have fantastic amenities. They don't want to just come into the office just to work. They need to grab a fantastic cup of coffee. They need to be able to collaborate in really cool spaces and provide other amenities that we'll touch on in a minute. And also, to ensure that the workspaces that they do have in the office really are high performance spaces. A lot of these are going to be individual spaces as well as collaborative spaces, and how that is underpinned by technology. So here, we've just got a quick study on this next slide that shows how some of the new grads are overwhelmingly want the option to go into the workplace, but also have the option for flexibility as well. And quite simply, as you can see there, one of the main wants for coming back to the workplace is food and beverage. So really that is an amenity that we're seeing becoming more and more popular. Outdoor space, in some cities, things like parking is really, really important to people now, since they haven't been, taking public transport. Green practices and other, food and beverage offerings really are paramount. So this is an example of one of the meaningful amenity spaces on the next slide that we've been doing, putting into some of our offices for our clients, which is quite simply a wellness room. And this can be a multi-function space. There could be a space to do individual working out, but it's also a place where people can come and decompress. So also, we're trying to introduce biophilic elements into these spaces, and we need to get natural light into all these types of amenity spaces as well. Another example, is different types of individual workspaces. This is just not about giving everyone a desk. People need to come in and be on a Zoom call when they're at their workstation. This is what a workstation can look like nowadays. To provide a level of adjustability, ergonomics, and intuitive AV really is very important to how people are working within the office space. Of course, the Zoom room. This is something that we've seen becoming more and more popular as well. This was something that we were doing maybe 10 years ago, where we were setting up really, specific video conferencing spaces. But I think, to provide different types of spaces where people can connect on video conferencing individually is another dedicated facility that we're designing for our clients. So another thing to talk about is team dynamics. So how can we support these distributed teams? And really, how can we provide these teams their own multi-purpose team spaces when they're within the office? How can we, intentionally design spaces using technology to allow all these team members to feel connected and have a fantastic experience? I think one of the team spaces that we're seeing more and more now in offices is the hybrid team workspace. We're showing an example on the next slide. Really, having spaces, flexible spaces that we're designing for teams that may usually just come into the office and go into a large meeting room, take over a meeting room space for a week. It doesn't really work for them. So, if people are coming into the office, a lot of the time they're coming in to work in teams. So we need to be designing flexible team spaces for them to be able to do that. Of course, we've got a lot of feedback on outdoor workspaces as well. That's on the next slide. So, we have had a lot of data coming back saying that if people can connect with outdoor spaces during their workday, and if they can work outside as well, this is really seeing an improvement in people's well-being and understanding that people do need this on a day-to-day basis. In places like Manhattan, these outdoor spaces really are becoming more and more valuable to organizations. I mentioned creating a sense of belonging, and how do we do that? Really, this intuitive user experience, providing the workspace that is really easy to use. People need to be able to bring their own device and just plug and play. Promoting unique rituals. How does your company work? How can you connect to the company culture? And then, increasing this visibility of employees with thoughtful space planning. We want to bring people together when they're in the office. It really does underpin an organization's corporate culture. So with this intuitive user experience, we're really how can we start that experience upon arrival into a building, personalizing using smart building technology, ease of connectivity, user comfort and control. Really, we need to make people feel comfortable when they're entering the space. And so what does the floor plan look like now that, taken into consideration all the things that I've mentioned? Number one there, unassigned seating. We're really seeing that these hoteling systems and unassigned seatings, creating neighborhoods, but, allowing people to sit where they want to really is what the majority of our clients are doing because people aren't going to be at their desk every single day. And number two, individual acoustic space. When people are coming into the office, they're going to be at the desk, but they're also going to be on Zoom calls a lot. So we need to really ensure that they get a high quality experience when they're doing video conferencing. Quiet zones as well. Individuals want to come and use, really good quality technology when they're at the desk and need to be able to break away and find quiet space as well as collaboration spaces as well. So virtual collaboration, obviously, that's going to be an enhanced technology experience, and we're planning for that. Team-owned space, as I mentioned, team rooms really are something that we're seeing a lot of nowadays. Offices still do exist, but we're creating offices that can be converted to collaboration spaces when people aren't using the office. A lot of the offices that we're designing nowadays as well are flexible and unassigned. And then circulation space. We do really need to, give a lot of feeling and space for people to be able to walk around. We don't want people to be coming into tight, cramped office space as well. So overall, the square footage per seat, we're talking about square footage per seat or per desk nowadays rather than square foot per person, because obviously, head count can be accommodated by different ratios of seats. So the plan on the top there, obviously there's a lot more blue individual space as opposed to what we're doing at the moment. We're giving a lot more space over to team collaboration, and social space still really is paramount and central to everything that we're designing nowadays. And then just lastly, a lot of our clients are rethinking their approach to their office, to their space. And we're really seeing them ask us the same questions. And we're asking the tough questions back to them as well, how to reinvigorate your culture. How has your culture been sustained, maintained throughout the pandemic when everyone's been working remotely? How are we going to get people back to the office? What does hybrid work look like? There's different work models that we can discuss with our clients. What level of flexibility is right? What is the corporate line? How can you, lay down those markers, the guardrails for, the concept of your hybrid working with your workforce? And how do we retain talent, using the office and the amenities to do that? So we're testing a lot of these new concepts at the moment. We're sending out a lot of surveys and doing lots of workshops with our clients, creating pilot spaces. That's something that is really popular, that's really worth the time and effort, and discussing flexible work policies with all our clients as well. So hopefully we've given you a good snapshot of some of the things that we're doing with our clients at the moment in terms of workplace design. And yeah, I think we're going to take some questions at the end.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, George. Up next, we have Gary Brand, Global Head of Zoom Rooms.
Well, hello. All right. So batting cleanup. Why don't we go ahead and go to the next slide? So Carrie Brand, Global Head of Zoom Rooms Sales and Go-to-Market Organization. I've got a few folks on the call, but not presenting with me. I got Derek Morgan and Griffin Scott. Those are our investor alliances folks. And if any of the portfolio companies have any questions about Zoom or would like to get connected, those are your two contacts. Why don't we go to the next slide? All right, so just wanted to say thank you to all the portfolio companies and Insight for having Zoom here today. You can put you up on our digital signage. So, just great partnership and collaboration across the entire portfolio. And why don't we go to the next slide here? Going to click through so we can keep on time. All right, so many of you likely know who Zoom is. We've all been using the technology platform to keep connected over the pandemic. I just wanted to kind of and share with all of you the fact that Zoom is a great meetings platform, but it is really a true unified communication and collaboration platform with services like phone, our developer and API SDK capabilities, our events platform like we're using here, and webinar platform, and then also chat, just amazing technology, and then Rooms, of course, my favorite. So just in case, just as an FYI, so why don't we go ahead and go on, just so you know who we are. All right, a few things that I want to share with you today, given the insight that Zoom has been having with all of the pandemic traffic that we've been seeing. There's a few things that I think are worth hitting upon. Some of these themes were covered earlier by the team here, but the safe return to the workplace is an essential thing, top of mind for customers. Video enabling every space in the building. So we talked about building selection or location selection, and then furnishing and design of the spaces. But then it's video enabling all of the spaces, and how do you do that? I'll touch on really quickly the evolution of room systems, and then just some expectations that we're seeing from our customers on equitable meeting experiences. So why don't we go ahead to the next slide? All right, so as we saw, different layouts for different offices, but once the floor plan, the interiors, all of that workspace design has been completed, the technology players come in like Zoom to help light that up. And a couple of trends that we're seeing to keep workers safe and to allow that flexibility when they come in the office is first things like virtual kiosks, or putting virtual kiosks in high traffic areas. Now, these kiosks can be used to do self-service, like reserving spaces in the office, or they can actually be a virtual receptionist where you are keeping your employees safe from COVID in high traffic areas, but still allowing that personal touch. Second thing that we're seeing as a trend is the ability is once you have this great design in the office, is being able to reserve spaces within that office. So providing technology that allows rooms that are video enabled or not video enabled, any space to be reserved so people can work safely is incredibly important. And then the third trend that I'll touch on really quickly, once we go to the next slide, is touchless experiences. So once you come into a space and you've reserved it, being able to interact with the technology that is in the space, be it a screen like the ones behind me here, or a phone, whatever is available, being able to connect to that technology and do so in a way that you don't have to touch it. So there are technologies today like ultrasonic sounds that you can use for pairing, or you can use Bluetooth technologies to do it, but enabling users, employees to frictionlessly connect with the technology that's available. The second trend that we're seeing and being asked for is delivering experiences that are just voice driven. So when you come into a meeting room, be it an open space or a room system itself, being able to launch a meeting and speak voice commands to it and drive it without touching it. So that's two. And then the third touchless experience we're seeing is people want to take these devices and actually use them to drive the meeting experience, because we touch these all day long, but only we're touching them. And so being able to connect wirelessly to room systems or video systems in the office, and then drive the experience just from your phone. So that's kind of the safety touchless experiences, but they're also very frictionless experiences. Why don't we go ahead and go to the next slide? A couple of other trends that we're being asked and by our customers that we're observing and actually implementing against are things that enable us to work in a hybrid manner. So collaboration is essential. And so how do you do that? Well, a lot of people are using whiteboards today. Being able to deliver that whiteboard experience in an environment where people may be remote, but still want to collaborate is one of the things we're hearing from our customers. We talked about reserving workspaces and hot desking, another big trend. Digital signage is one of those technologies that is incredibly empowering because it does a couple of things. So you can do advertising like what's behind me here, but you can also safely gather small groups of people to attend things like company meetings and use the digital signage technology to enable safe mass scale meetings. On the room side, what we're really seeing from our customers is being able to have the same experience in the room systems as they've had in their personal experiences, right? When I connect to a meeting over using my phone or my laptop, it should be as easy to do that within a room. When I was at Plantronics running strategy a long time ago, we had these room systems that when we had board meetings, we would actually have our IT person that was dedicated to the room, outside of the room, just to make sure the room could get connected. And then, you know, if we could share content, it was like a miracle. So it is one of those things that, you know, technology providers need to be able to make that experience easy and frictionless, just like you do at home. Okay, the third, or I'd say the second most important thing besides ease of use is interoperability, and having solutions that can work with other video conferencing providers is essential. So how do you actually enable mass scale within an office space of video? Well, let's go to the next slide here. Traditionally, rooms have been complicated, and there was a reason for it. You know, you wanted to have a fantastic room experience. You would do a Pro AV install. You would install speakers and microphones into the ceiling of a room. You would have a codec and an amplifier and a DSP and screen the cameras, and it was very complicated. And the experience was awesome, but it was also really expensive, and it took a long time to install. We still do this today as Zoom. This is a Zoom design you're seeing here, but there is an evolution that's happening, because if you want to enable video everywhere, you can't be spending tens of thousands of dollars per room, and especially like really upper end rooms, you could be over $100,000. So how do you lower the bar for getting video everywhere? Well, there's the emergence of what we are calling appliances. So why don't we go to the next slide? There we go. So, and actually behind me, I've got a bunch of appliances, and these are all Zoom rooms. So you'll see things from D10, from Neat, from Logitech in the background, from Poly. These are all appliances, and the great thing about appliances are super simple. They take all of those discrete components, microphones, speakers, cameras, etc., and they consolidate it into a single unit. Some even include the screen, like the Neat board behind me. But these devices are incredibly easy to install. 3 cables, 4 if you've got 2 displays, 1 for power, 1 for intranet or Ethernet connection, and 2 HDMI outs, and you're ready to go. The actual speaker, capabilities in these devices can project across a large room. The microphone pickup can actually project across pickup from a large room. So in general, super easy to use and cost effective. So a room with an appliance-based approach is, well under $10,000 installed. So it's more cost effective, and you can scale down with these room systems. So the last thing I want to touch on here is meeting equity. And so as we have been all at home in the pandemic, we have each occupied our own little piece of real estate in a virtual meeting. And that works really well. And it's something we're used to. And it is kind of the dominant paradigm of, what it means to have an equitable experience. If I can see you and you can see me. When we return to the office, we need to be aware of the room systems that have been deployed there. And a lot of the experiences that you'll see from a room when it is in a virtual meeting is that you see the room and you see the participants, but the participants aren't focused on, right? They're kind of, it's a broad perspective of the room. So technology companies like Zoom and others are enabling equitable meeting experiences. And this is technology today where you can actually use a single camera and drive into the room and pull out the people using AI and machine learning to understand who's in the room and bring those people up front and give them their own box, you know. And so it's a very powerful meeting experience because it brings the office back into that virtual meeting. So the technology is available today from Zoom. It's called Smart Gallery. It's in pretty much all of the appliances, or will be in all the appliances, and it's across PCs and Macs, so it's ubiquitous. And I would like to kind of close, because I know we're running over time here, on just an ask, and for the Insight Partners portfolio companies to come and join us and actually see what this is like, what these room experiences are like. So we have an online, or it's a virtual tour, but it's an actual tour of the San Jose headquarters in Zoom with multiple different types of rooms deployed. And so you can actually get a feel for what it's like to be on the other end of a video call using a D10 or a Neat board, but no slides at all. So anyways, this link here will get you to the registration page. And I think that's all I have.
Thank you so much, Carrie. That was wonderful. And now we would like to transition to answering some of your questions here. So if you haven't already submitted a question, please feel free to do that in the Q&A. I'll start by sharing one. Many companies announced that technical teams will work fully remote, but business positions like HR, finance, and sales will work in a hybrid model. Are there any other reasons other than the necessity of face-to-face connection? George, you want to take this one?
Sure, yeah. You know, I think we know that, you know, bringing diverse workforces together face-to-face really does fuel innovation. You know, huge companies, huge tech companies have been saying that for the last 10 years. So really, you know, encouraging that face-to-face communication really does support trust and build confidence, you know, with your colleagues. There is also, you know, cross-pollination of ideas from different fields, different departments, you know, that water cooler moment, all those types of, you know, meetings within the office really still do matter. And also it's, you know, bringing people face-to-face in the office also, you know, underpins your corporate culture and creates that sense of belonging. There's also mentorship as well that's really important face-to-face. So, you know, if people aren't necessarily working together in the same team, there are these other types of, you know, behaviors that we really do encourage by getting people, you know, face-to-face within the office.
Thanks, George. Another question, do you have any benchmark data on how many office resources are needed by office size or employee number?
I can jump into this one if that helps. So the answer is yes. It really just depends on sort of what you're looking for and how big your office is. So we have a service called Host at CBRE. It's sort of a digital concierge app, but a secondary aspect of it is actually staffing people. So they have a lot of information on, you know, based on how many people you are, how many, you know, day porters or sort of administrative type of staff you might need to support an office of X size. So you guys can ping me offline and I can share that.
Great. Thank you. Another question around furniture companies and how they've pivoted to meet the needs.
Yeah, I mean, I can touch on that. You know, we work with furniture companies all the time, obviously specifying new furniture. Yeah, I mean, there is lots of pivots to the new fluid workplace requirements. You know, creating modular desk systems. We're seeing a lot of workstations really just being singular workstations, additional acoustics to be applied to them so that people can have Zoom calls at their desks. Obviously, sit stand is all part of the the new well-being that we're trying to create within the office environment. But things like phone booths, you know, clients can purchase phone booths. They know they can actually take them with them if they move, and that is a room. You know, that's a place where someone can touch down and have a call as well. Movable screens, demountable partitions. We are seeing more of that nowadays because people know that you know, the types of work they're going to be doing in 6 months or a year from now may be different, and they do want an element of flexibility. You know, demountable partitions are being offered by furniture vendors as well nowadays. And then, you know, acoustics really is becoming more and more you know, apparent that we need them, and furniture systems really can have that built in as well. And then, you know, integrated technology, really we're seeing power and data, you know, or technology screens integrated into all sorts of workstations and work points.
Thanks, George. This is a question around tech. Any solutions to automatically track who's on an office in a given day?
Absolutely. There's technology out there that will talk about who's in the office. You can do everything from who's on the phone, who's on chat, what they're talking about, what's their mood. Does this employee have a high risk for leaving the organization because they're unhappy? So absolutely.
Yeah, and then a corollary to that too is there, you know, other tools that track how people are using the space. So, you know, one of the things that we've run into is sort of, you know, identity can get a little bit tricky when it comes to privacy policy, right? So a lot of employers have decided to just anonymize that type of data versus, you know, track specific people.
Thanks, Lucas. And it seems like we had 2 questions asking about the square footage of desks area. Do you have some insight on that as well?
Yeah. So like I said, it really depends on the policy that you have in place. Historically, you know, if you had a 1-to-1 ratio where everyone had assigned seats, you know, you had employers pack people in the startup world at almost 100 square feet per person, which is like WeWork size. Like it's really dense. I'd say a more comfortable metric would be somewhere in the 150 to 200 square feet. If you go to law firms, you know, they could get up to 500 or 700 square feet per person. So it really depends on the policy that you have. Like I said, what Google's doing is actually expanding their square footage per person metric. So they're going to be, I think, about 250 square feet per person. But what that actually encapsulates is all the new collaboration space that they're going to include in some of their new offices. So it's not like you as an individual get access to that space. It's just sort of a metric based on the new amenitized space that they're putting in. So once you sort of figure out that remote program, that's where you can figure out, and we'll send that tool out to help you sort of rationalize what the right square footage is for you. It's not sort of a one size fits all solution.
And I think to add on to that as well, you know, we're talking about square footage per head count, but also square footage per work point. So, you know, we can accommodate a much bigger head count, you know, with a much smaller number of desks. But we are seeing as a trend, the square footage per desk in an office is going up because we want to provide amenities and more collaboration spaces as well.
Yeah, thank you both. So one question we have is connecting different clients who are using different technologies in the office. This might be a good question for Carrie.
Sure. Yeah. So there's, depending on who's on the other end of that video call, but interoperability is getting very good. For example, with Microsoft and others that will be implementing this, there's a technology called Direct Guest Join that will actually allow you to join into video conferencing. So if it's a Teams call and a Zoom call, they work well together. On the Cisco side, and the Cisco shops, and I know there's a lot of Cisco deployments out there, we have a technology called CRC that we leverage to actually do interoperability with Cisco type devices and video conferencing. And on the Google front, we've partnered with PegSip to build interop in for like Google Meet, et cetera. So interop is there and it's going to get better.
Thanks, Gary.
Yep.
And what are we seeing in terms of themed conference rooms? Less of it or more neutral spaces?
I mean, I think, giving, an equal experience for people that are, joining from an organization from different offices, we want to have a similar type of background and, design for the room. But, in terms of themes conference rooms, if, you do want to offer a variety of interior designs, environments for staff, then I think creating different, designs for offices really could be quite invigorating. But I think, really functionality is more and more, important in terms of a quality video conferencing experience.
Thanks, George. Well, thank you everyone for sharing your insights with Insight's ecosystem and all the attendees here today. CBRE, Zoom, Corgan, can't thank you enough for being amazing partners. And to all of you who are listening today, we'll be following up with an email with a link to a recording, which will be posted on Insight's blog. And this seems to be a hot topic, so hopefully there'll be part 3 of this series, and we'll be having another conversation with partners to continue that discussion. Thank you, everyone. Have a